You know that feeling when you open your credit card statement and the number is bigger than last month, even though you made a payment, even though you were careful, even though you told yourself this month would be different. That feeling, that quiet, sinking dread, is what debt does to a person, not just to your bank account, to your mind, to your sleep, to the way you walk through the world. But here is what I need you to know before we go any further. Debt is not a life sentence. It is a problem, and problems have solutions, even on a low income, even with multiple balances, even if you have tried before and it didn't work. Stay with me, because today we are going to build your way out. Let's start with something most finance videos skip entirely: the emotional weight of debt. Because if we don't talk about that first, none of the strategies will stick. When you carry debt, you carry it everywhere. You are at a birthday dinner and someone suggests splitting a nicer bottle of wine, and your stomach tightens, because you know what's in your account. You are at work, doing your job, but a corner of your brain is always running the numbers. How much is due, when it is due, whether the minimum payment will clear in time. You avoid checking certain apps. You silence certain notifications, because not knowing feels safer than knowing. This is what debt actually costs. Not just the interest, not just the balance, but the mental space it occupies. Every single day. And I want you to hold on to that feeling for a moment, because the pain of it is going to be your fuel. The discomfort you feel right now is not your enemy. It is the thing that is going to make you follow through. Before you pay a single dollar toward debt, you need to do something first. Something most people avoid. Something that feels terrifying. You need to look at all of it. Every balance, every interest rate, every minimum payment, every creditor, written down, in one place, on one page. Not a rough estimate, not a vague sense of how bad it is. The actual numbers. I know this sounds obvious, but here is the truth. Most people in debt have never actually looked at the full picture at once. They deal with each bill as it arrives. They pay what they can. They avoid the rest. And because they never see it all together, the debt feels like a monster in the dark, shapeless, endless, impossible. But when you write it all down, when you give it a shape, something shifts. It stops being a monster and starts being a list. And lists can be worked through. So before anything else, sit down this week, pull up every statement, write down every balance and interest rate, add it up, look at the total, breathe. You are not looking at the end of your story. You are looking at the starting point of a plan. Okay, now let's talk strategy. There are two proven methods for paying off debt, and they work for different people for different reasons. Understanding both means you can pick the one that fits you. The first method is called the debt avalanche. Here's how it works. You list all your debts from highest interest rate to lowest. You pay the minimums on everything. Then, every extra dollar you have goes toward the highest interest debt first. Once that is gone, you attack the next highest, and the next. This method saves you the most money overall, because the debts costing you the most in interest get eliminated first. Mathematically, it is the most efficient path. If you are analytical, if you are motivated by numbers, if you can stay disciplined over a long period, the avalanche is your method. The second method is called the debt snowball. Here is how it works. You list your debts from smallest balance to largest, ignoring the interest rate. You pay minimums on everything. Then, every extra dollar goes toward the smallest debt first. The moment that debt is gone, you feel it. A real win, a balance that says zero, and that feeling keeps you going. You roll that payment into the next smallest debt, then the next. The snowball gets bigger as it rolls. This method costs slightly more in interest overall, but it generates momentum, and momentum, for most people, is worth more than math. If you have struggled to stay motivated, if you need early wins to keep going, if discipline alone has not worked before, the snowball is your method. Neither one is wrong. Pick the one you will actually stick to, because the best debt payoff strategy is the one you follow through on. Now let's talk about the part of this conversation most videos ignore. What if there is barely anything left after the bills? What if the extra dollar doesn't exist? This is the reality for a lot of people. And if that is you, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not failing. You are operating in a genuinely difficult situation, and the advice of just pay more toward your debt is not helpful when there is nothing left to pay with. So let's talk about what is actually in your control. The first thing is finding the leaks. Even on a tight income, most people have at least $20 to $50 a month leaking out somewhere, subscriptions running in the background, small daily habits adding up, convenient spending that feels necessary but isn't. That $20 redirected to debt is not nothing. Over 12 months, that is $240, plus the interest you did not pay on it. Find the leak, plug it, redirect it. The second thing is temporary income. Not a second full-time job, something fast and flexible, a skill you can offer this week, something you own that you can sell, one extra shift, one gig, one thing. Even a single extra $100 thrown at your smallest debt creates momentum that changes the feel of the whole journey. The third thing is negotiation. Most people do not know this, but you can call your creditors. You can ask for a lower interest rate. You can ask for a hardship program. You can ask for more time. The worst they can say is no. And very often, when you call and explain your situation honestly, they say yes. Because a creditor who works with you gets paid. A creditor who pushes you to the edge often gets nothing. I need to take a moment to talk about something that is quietly destroying people's finances: the minimum payment. When your credit card statement arrives, there is a small, friendly number at the bottom, your minimum payment due. It looks manageable, it feels responsible. Pay that, and you are good, right? Wrong. Here is what the minimum payment actually does. It keeps you in debt for as long as possible. That is not an accident. That is the design. A $5,000 credit card balance at 20% interest, paid only at the minimum payment, could take over 15 years to pay off, and cost you more in interest than the original balance. You could pay back double what you borrowed, just by doing the minimum. The minimum payment is not a finish line, it is a holding pattern, and every month you stay in that holding pattern, the debt gets more expensive. Pay more than the minimum, always, even if it is just $10 more, because $10 more is $10 less of your future going to interest. Here is a question that comes up constantly when people are trying to pay off debt. Should I save an emergency fund first, or throw everything at the debt? And the honest answer is both, in the right order. Here is why. If you put every spare dollar toward debt and have zero savings, the moment an emergency hits, and it will hit, you go straight back to the credit card. All that progress, undone in one afternoon. So before you aggressively attack your debt, build a small buffer first. Not 3 to 6 months of expenses, not yet, just $500, sitting in a separate account, untouched. That $500 is your firewall. It is the thing that stops one bad day from becoming a debt spiral. Once you have that buffer, then you attack the debt with everything you have. $500 first, then the avalanche or the snowball, in that order. Here is the part of the debt payoff journey that nobody prepares you for. It is not the math. The math is straightforward. It is the identity shift. Because getting out of debt requires you to make decisions that feel uncomfortable. Saying no to things your friends say yes to. Sitting out the holiday, skipping the upgrade, choosing the cheaper option again and again. And in those moments, the voice in your head will say, "This is not who I am. I should be able to afford this. I deserve better than this." And that voice is not entirely wrong. You do deserve better. But here is what that voice does not understand. Every sacrifice you make right now is an investment in the version of you who is completely free, the version who does not check their account with dread, the version who can say yes, genuinely, freely, without guilt, because the weight is gone. That version is on the other side of these uncomfortable decisions. not years away, closer than you think. So when the voice speaks, acknowledge it, and then remind it, I am not suffering, I am building. There is a difference. Let's bring it home. Getting out of debt on a low income is hard. I am not going to pretend it isn't. It requires discipline on days when discipline feels impossible. It requires patience when progress feels invisible. It requires saying no so that your future self can say yes. But it is achievable, by real people, with real incomes, with real lives that are not perfect. People who started exactly where you are right now. The difference between the person still drowning in debt 5 years from now and the person who is free is not income. It is the decision to start and the commitment to keep going. You have already made the first decision by watching this video. Now make the second one. Write the list, pick the method, build the buffer, and take one step forward. Today. Here is your assignment for this week. 1. Write down every debt you have, balance, interest rate, minimum payment. 2. Decide, avalanche or snowball. Pick one and commit. 3. Find one place in your budget where you can free up even $20 this month. Direct it to your smallest or highest interest debt, depending on your method. That is it. 3 steps. This week, the journey out of debt starts with a list and a decision. If this video gave you clarity, share it with someone who is carrying debt in silence. They need to hear that there is a way out. New video every week. Subscribe, and I will see you next week.